All right, let's continue our countdown to SEC Media Days presented by our friends at ATIX. Tickets to Miami, Alabama, Auburn, Penn State, anything, including plays on Broadway when they crank back to full strength with our friends at ATIX, AAATIX.com. That's Jay Crain. You know him from the Jboy Show. I promise you, when Feinbaum retires, this is the person the SEC network should go get. He should be the face of the SEC network in the future. Man, you know I'm a big fan. Welcome. Thanks for doing this as we count down to SEC Media Days. How have you been lately? You been on a heater?
Yeah, man. As we were talking in the pre-show, and I first would like to say it's an honor to come on here, Jim, and those kind words, man, coming from you, that means a lot. You obviously know the respect I have for you and not only what you've done, but what you guys are doing. I love it. Caught the first couple shows, and I knew it was going to be great, and I know the response has been great. But now it's been wild. Got a little lucky on the home run derby pick, and then hit a prop bet last night in the All-Star game for the AL to win by 3 runs, man. But no, I'm feeling great. And Jim, I'm so excited, not only about SEC Media Day, man, but getting the season here, hopefully getting back to normal, being full capacity. And it's just an exciting time. And I'm excited to join you, man. It's an honor. It really is.
You know, we've been doing the Jboy Show now. You have for over a year, and we'll talk more about that and how you can find it in a second. But you brought up the home run derby. My buddy Lance Taylor, who gives out his Lance's Lock every day, lanceslock.com, he also went Pete Alonso at plus 450.
Nice.
Just like you, and nailed that. He claims to be the best Uno player on the planet. And I've learned that you, too, think you're pretty darn good at Uno.
I'm going to say this, Jim, and I don't want this to come off as arrogant or narcissistic, but I feel like I am the Michael Jordan of Uno, and I am down to play anybody, anytime, anywhere, on any platform. When it comes to Uno, I feel like I'm numero uno, Jim.
When next time you're in Birmingham, you let us know. We'll do a live stream of UNLT. Do you need more than 2 for it to be a quality game? Do you need a couple of other undercards on the table as well?
Well, you always want to play with people that understand the game. It's almost like sitting down at a blackjack table. But I think we can get it done with 2. If we need to throw a third wheel in there, we can, just to keep the cards mixed up and stuff like that. But no, it'd be a heck of a showdown. I mean, it would rival Celtics, Lakers, Auburn, Alabama. I mean, just coming to think, all the great rivalries, I think we could develop one in the Uno space.
Okay, well, we'll get into that. Tell people before we talk SEC football, how they can get the Jboy Show and digest that almost daily from you guys.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube as well. Started the YouTube channel a couple months ago. It's going really well. It's the Jayboy Show, THE space, JBOY space, SHOW. We cover the SEC. We go national some, all 3 major sports. No politics, just ball. And now we're pretty easy to find. We're on Twitter and Instagram as well at the Jboy Show. So come check us out. We're dropping content all the time, like you said. Was lucky enough to coach college football for 9 years, 5 at the Division I level, and doing this, it's a different world, but I'm loving it, man. I've been very blessed with the people that are around me and the position that I've been put in. So no, it's exciting, man, and go check us out. I think you'll like it.
I enjoy your interview style, and you had Brad Nessler on the other day, and I'm interested as a guy who is now on your side of the microphone when you're talking to a guy like Nessler who has done so much, and I love his play-by-play style. When you're talking to a guy like that as opposed to talking to a coach, do you find yourself feeling a little bit more anxious because you've coached before and you're so new at broadcasting? Is there more nerves talking to Nessler than, say, talking to Mike Leach?
I would say from a topic range, because again, ball, talking ball is ball, and you get to certain points where, you don't want to dive too deep into it with the coaches where they either give something away or the terminology gets lost in translation and people, it's like trying to put together a Rubik's Cube and people are listening to it. But no, when I interview guys like, we've had Brad Nessler and Trey Wingo and Tim Brando and Feinbaum and these guys, I've never really been an anxious or kind of nervous or awkward person. But it's really after the interview, Jim, like when I'll get done and realize, that I just went 35 minutes with Brad Nessler and that, with Trey Wingo and stuff like that. And just thinking about, where I've come from, where I've started, I didn't really have any formal training in this or whatever. I'm just, like Booby Miles said, just let me spin. But No, I get excited. I actually probably get more excited for guys like Brad Nessler than I do for Mike Leach, just because I've met half of these guys before. So it's a great question. And to answer it more after the interview's done, or maybe right when they decide to come on, I've got Dan Wetzel coming on today. I'm excited about that as well. So, no, it's a great question, and a little bit of yes and no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your athletic roots and stuff. You played baseball. There's when you play baseball at your level at South Alabama, you don't get anxious very much. Let's talk football now. Texas has Steve Sarkisian. You talk national a little bit as we record this. It's the start of Big 12 media days. Next week is SEC media days. I joked earlier. This is welcome to Texas's back day at Big 12 media days. How long do you think it is until Steve Sarkisian literally gets Texas back?
Well, to me, I think we have to define, what being back is. Is back winning a national championship once out of every 4 to 5 years? Is it making the playoff? I think it's making the playoff. I think if we define it like that, I love Sark. Yeah, as an offensive mind, as an innovative mind, we're going to see, because being the head man is a whole heck of a lot different than being the offensive coordinator. He had some really good players at Alabama, but I thought he did an unbelievable job, not only throughout the regular season in managing that talent and putting them in positions to win and spreading the ball around, but I thought his game plan for the national championship was one of the best that I've seen. What they did against Man was absolutely incredible, from the orbit motions, the play actions off the orbit motions, getting guys open. But when I look at that roster and I look at the personnel, for Sark to do what he wants to do, I think it's going to take at least 2 years. He's always going to have a quarterback. They should be able to score points. When I look at Texas, I just don't see a complete team yet. Defensively, special teams, and even in the Big 12, which didn't even have a guy drafted in the first round last year in the NFL draft, which is incredible. And it's really been Oklahoma has had the run of the mill. I think we're at least 2 years away. But I think they're in a lot better position with Steve Sarkisian than Tom Herman.
I've been an Alabama guy my whole life. That's the way I was raised. But my supper club is 6 couples of Auburn graduates. They all went to Auburn. And so, I hear a lot of Auburn football and their excitement on what Brian Harsin has done just with the transfer portal and what he's been able to add since he got there. And a big pickup at wide receiver this week. Tell me what you think of what Harsin has done to try to fill some cracks in the roster and the big portal pickup they got with a little experience at receiver this week.
Yeah, starting on the defensive side and in the portal, I think they've knocked it out of the park. You add Donovan Kaufman, the Vanderbilt transfer, who's, already getting NFL looks as a young guy, and he's got 3 years of eligibility. Now, he's about 5'9", but he plays a lot bigger. And what it allows you to do is to put Ladarius Tennyson down at nickel and put Donovan at free safety, move Smoke Monday to the strong so you don't have to put him in the sky. I don't think Smoke's hips are good enough to sit there and be able to put him in the sky. When you go cover one, it helps you in 2-man a whole heck of a lot, because now you can really emphasize the slots to the field where Smoke's going to be. But adding, there's a guy, and I'm going to get to Demetrius Robinson, the wide receiver, in a second, but there's a guy that Auburn has coming in. There's 2 of them that are not getting talked about enough. Number 1 is by Darius Knighton, the Southeast Missouri transfer. This guy is an NFL player. He can play nickel. He can play strong. He can play free, because what you're going to see out of Derek Mason is you're going to have your starting 11 out there. Obviously, you can't play with 12. But when you look at the way they're going to be able to rotate and what he's going to be able to bring in from an exotic blitz package, and when it's 3rd and 9 and 3rd and pass, and saying, hey, we can bring our 3rd corner in at nickel if we want, and Jalen Simpson, because I'm going to get to the other guy in a second. We can move by Darius down and bring him. Heck, we could switch by Darius and Donovan Kaufman and be fine and give different looks. And that's how you kill tendencies on defense, Jim, which is a big methodology and really helps out, obviously, defensive coordinators and really the secondary being able to disguise. And the second one is Drayshawn Miller. A lot of people don't realize Roger McCreary right now on the other side is the 3rd highest graded SEC player in the whole conference defensively when you look at the NFL draft. He may be a top 2 corner taken, top 3 corner taken in the NFL draft. But Drayshawn Miller, the corner they got from West Virginia, is a guy that, you're looking at guys thinking he's a day 2 guy after this year. So Auburn secondary, I'm releasing a graphic today when we're recording this about secondaries in the SEC, the top 5, and I've got Auburn number 1. And I don't know if it's really that close with the mix of experience. Now they have to coalesce, But then there's two areas that, I've talked about a bunch. You guys have talked about a bunch on offense where Auburn has to get better. And you do that by the portal. It's tough asking a young guy to come in and play. That's at wide receiver, and that's at offensive line, specifically offensive tackle. They get Demetrius Robertson, a transfer from Georgia, was a 5-star coming out of high school, went to Cal as a freshman and blew up. Was on and off at Georgia, had a pretty decent year in 2019. But there's a big difference in Auburn's offensive line room and their wide receiver room. In their offensive line room, I don't think they have as talented a personnel as they do in the wide receivers room. It's just those guys are really young in the wide receiver room. You look at Kobe Hudson. You look at Javarius Johnson. You look at Elijah Canyon. You look at Xavier Capers. You look at Malcolm Johnson Jr. You go down the list, and then you bring in a guy like Demetrius Robertson, that number one has experience, because as valuable as every catch that he's going to make, every touchdown that he's going to score, it's 10 times as valuable to be able to go in that room with a bunch of young guys and say, listen, this is how you got to prepare. I've caught balls in these games. I understand how these defensive guys play. Here's how you're going to get open. Here's how you get open when you're an equal athlete to an equal athlete on the other side of the ball. Going into an environment pregame where it's nuts, they may be a little anxious, a little nervous. That guy can calm them down a little bit. Say, throw me the first ball. Throw me the first ball. I'm going to get us going. And that's huge for that room. So that was a big pickup. Still worried about the offensive line, Jim. But listen, Brian Harsin, to me, is going to do it his way. I know some people have been frustrated a little bit with high school recruiting, even though they did just pick up Michael Riley-Ducker. They're about to get Damari Alston, Jay Fair. I feel good about Caden Story. And you got to give a guy time. But accountability's back at Auburn. I think toughness is back at Auburn. And I think winning up front and trying to win on the defensive side is back at Auburn. And that's how Auburn needs to play.
Yeah, I think Brian Harsin has some Pat Dye-like qualities.
I agree.
To him. So that would excite me if I'm an Auburn fan. If I listen to your comment there, I'm excited if I'm an Auburn fan. How excited should I be about this season? Give me what my expectations should be going into 2021.
Yeah, well, I say this about Bo Nix all the time. Two things can be true at once. You can be excited about the future because, again, Brian Harsin, while out of all the new coaches, if you look at Shane Beamer, if you look at Heupel, obviously Clark Lee on that one-man Martian mission over there at Vanderbilt, best of luck with him. It's surprised they didn't hire Matt Damon to be his, director of player personnel or whatever to help him grow potatoes somewhere.
Potatoes are important. You got to have the potatoes, man.
That's exactly right. Yeah. They could probably figure it out at Vandy pretty quick, to be honest with you. But down the road, I think he's the right guy this year with the personnel that he has. I think 8-4 would be a great mark. Anything above that would be icing on the cake. And I know, look, Auburn fans, the standard is you want to win championships, and I understand that. You look to your left, you look to your right. You got Alabama and Georgia winning championships. A&M's building a monster over there. But Brian understands that if you're going to try and beat the Death Star, this is not Star Wars. The rebellion is not going to win. You have to build your own Death Star. He's thrown bodies and money at the recruiting department. He's brought in a really good staff that has an array of guys from different areas. Like I said, they just got a kid from Bellevue, Nebraska, a big-time tight end flex Y kid in Michael Riley-Ducker out there. Not that you don't have to protect the home state, but looking down the road, looking at the organization, understanding that, Nick Saban calls it the process. What is the process? It's a race for efficiency. How close can I get to being as efficient as humanly possible and sequencing out everything? I think that's what Brian Harsin brings to Auburn. And what does that breed, Jim? Consistency. And that's what Auburn hasn't had.
Jake, a lot of people don't know you spent some time working for Rivals as well. Seeing that side of the business, do people that follow recruiting and keeping up with rosters, do they ever sleep? Do you guys ever get a day off? Those people that are with Rivals or On 3 or 24/7, any of that stuff, do those guys ever take a day off?
Yeah, it was funny. I actually started working for Rivals while I was in college, right when I got done playing, but before I got into coaching. And to be honest with you, I think they get more sleep than we did in coaching, especially GA. And me, it's funny, Auburn's wide receiver coach, Cornelius Williams, GA'd with me at South, and we go back and forth and tell stories on that. But listen, in the social media day and age, Jim, the answer is no. I'm just fortunate enough where I'm coming off 9 years and not being able to sleep anyway.
Right.
So it kind of helps. And I will say, I think one thing that helps is that, I have recruited before. I have been in that room. I've gone in that living room. I've hosted the person on that visit. So reaching out to kids and talking with them and being able to, strike up a conversation and get information out of them, something I'm used to. But it is a rat race 24/7. And you got to think, Jim, we don't just cover football. We cover basketball as well. and the mixture of the transfer portal and recruiting there has been wild. But no, it's fun. I always joke it's a lot different on this side. Now I get to just grade, how 18 to 22-year-old kids do during the game instead of worrying about am I going to be able to eat next week or provide next week because my 19-year-old sophomore, didn't play good or he played great. So to answer your question, no, just thank goodness I'm used to it.
We're getting ready for SEC Media Days, and this team right here, LSU,
Yeah,
that's my old meteorology days of local
there we
TV,
go.
being able to point at that. LSU right there is sort of a shake the magic 8 ball kind of team this year. A lot of people don't know what they're going to get. When you shake your LSU magic 8 ball, what do you think you're going to get this year?
Well, I think LSU's, kind of similar to Auburn, and they do better as the outsider. I really believe that. They've had the chip on their shoulder because, look, LSU's got talent. They lost last year. You're coming off a national championship. You had 19 guys that started, leave the roster, mixture of the portal and guys going to the draft. You lose a guy like Joe Burrow. Obviously, they didn't start off well against Mississippi State, got better at the end of the year. And I'm looking for LSU. I got them finishing second in the West, Jim. I got them tied with A&M and winning the tiebreaker last regular season game. A&M goes down there to Death Valley. But when I look at that team, I love the Jake Peets hire. He brought DJ Mangus with him at OC. I think Max Johnson's going to be the guy. Had his dad, Brad Johnson, on the other day. I've talked to some coaches around the league from other teams that are assuming he is going to be the guy, which means he's going to be the guy.
Right.
And what Max brings outside of, being Brad Johnson's son and growing up being bred to be a quarterback is he can run. He's an above-level thrower. We saw that in games he came in. We saw it against Florida. He can drop it in the bucket on the deep ball. He can hit you on the slant. He can make the now screen throw. He can drop the slip screen in there. But I think what Jake Peets and them want to do is get back to being able to spread you out, be heavy RPO, be able to run the zone read. Because anytime, the quarterback is able to not only run Q power, and you've got to account for him for draw and all this stuff, which muddies you up when you want to go two-man. One thing Alabama loves to do, Jim, on third and passing down is go two-man, lock everybody up underneath, let the safeties play it like cover two, or if they want to shade a guy. But when you have a quarterback that can run, all right, you have to stunt the front because if you're going to run two-man, the Mike's got to cover the back. And if the back goes and the Mike goes, there's nobody in the middle of the field. And when you have a guy like Max Johnson, that tends to make you a little more nervous calling that when it's your bread and butter on third and passing downs. But just looking at the way the offense is architected with Jake, I think Max is going to be the guy. And then you look at LSU defensively, Derek Stingley's not injured anymore. They've added guys, Major Burns was a huge pickup, even though that's the biggest oxymoron name I've ever heard for a DB and would scare me to death. He's a really good player. They're really good up front. They got some young guys on that D-line I'm really excited about. Mason Smith, a 5-star last year, is third string at defensive tackle right now. That shows you how good they are up front. I look at the wide receivers. I think Keyshawn Boutte is the most underrated wide receiver in the country with what he did last year and kind of got snubbed on some preseason teams. But I think LSU comes back this year. They need to start out well because with all the outside noise that's been going on with LSU, if you go out to UCLA, and we're not talking about the upper corner of lower Alabama, you go out there and you drop one, there's going to be some trouble. And in my opinion, while he's not on the hot seat yet, if LSU does not do well this year with all the outside stuff going on, I would not be surprised if Edo's seat really warmed up. But I got him finishing second in the West.
Let's play a game I like to call Take Saban Out.
Okay.
Take Saban out of the mix. Give me the one SEC coach in a big game you would want coaching your team.
Jimbo Fisher.
Tell me why.
Number one, I think Jimbo does a really good job because you have guys, listen, Dan Mullen's an unbelievable play caller. Unbelievable play caller. But if I had to have a guy to prepare to go into a game, because to me it's not just, all right, the day of the game and calling plays and that, it's preparing up for that game. I'm going to take Jimbo. He understands how to coach both sides of the ball. The quarterback is going to be coached up as well as any quarterback in the country. He's not going to try and do too much, and he's one of the best at setting you up for later in the game. Even with Kellen Mond, a guy I don't think he trusted really to put the ball in the air late in the game, and he didn't have to with that offensive line. He always puts the offense in a position that exposes their strengths. With Kellen, it was, we're not going to sit here and throw it 70 times a game. We're going to give you intermediate routes. We're going to throw a couple verticals. We're going to move the pocket a little bit, get you on the run, but we're not going to make you just a straight runner. So I think it's Jimbo Fisher from an organizational standpoint, from a practice structural standpoint, from a game planning standpoint, and then a game day execution standpoint. I'm going to tell you what, Jimbo Fisher, you talk about pregame speeches, you go in that locker room and listen to Jimbo talk, you'll start headbutting lockers, man, and slapping each other in the face.
That's the side of Jimbo I don't think a lot of people respect there. So now take Nick Saban out and take Jimbo out. Give me a guy in the SEC we don't respect enough.
Man, that's a great question. I would say Mark Stoops at Kentucky. To me, going there for a while last college basketball season, I was almost going to predict Kentucky's going to win more games in football than they did in college basketball for the first time in the history of the world. And, you start looking at the Mayan calendar again, wondering what's going on. Duke and North Carolina, them not being good either. But no, what Mark Stoops has done at Kentucky, because, Rich Brooks was good for a little bit, but being able to recruit linemen at the level that they have on the offensive and defensive side has really risen that program from a, hey, we may screw around and be in a game against a good team every now and then, to when you play Kentucky, it is an absolute physical war. And for the past couple of years with Eddie Gran, it's been glorified inside drill for the whole game with Kentucky. They're just going to line up in heavy personnel, maybe put a Wildcat guy at quarterback. Terry Wilson was all right last year, but bringing in Will Levis from Penn State, adding Liam Cohen as the offensive coordinator, anything they get out of the passing game is going to be icing on the cake. We know their offensive line is going to be awesome, and they just added LSU starting left tackle Dare Rosenthal. Chris Rodriguez is one of the most underrated backs in the country. I love what Josh Ali brings. Now when you play Kentucky, they're going to be a little more balanced on offense. Will Levis is a guy that can run as well. So you're going to be seeing something brand new from Kentucky, and typically the first year you see something brand new, it tends to hit in most spots. Look at Auburn and Gus Malzahn in 2013. You can go down the list of new coaches that have had a lot of success. You see it a lot on the defensive side. It's Todd Grantham's MO. It's been that at Georgia and at Florida. So I think Kentucky and Mark Stoops, they got Trevin Wallace last year. I just look at that team, and that to me has been the greatest roster transition, one of them that I have seen in a long time. Mark Stoops to me, and I don't even know if it's close.
Anywhere in the country, one coach, if he called Jay Crain up today and said, "Hey, I want you to quit what you're doing and come back and coach with me," who would it be? Who do you respect enough to leave? And I will accept our buddy Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech as an answer as well, because I love that guy to death.
Yeah, just hypothetical. I obviously love what I'm doing, but if Saban calls, I'm going. Obviously, I know I'm gonna get paid.
That's right.
Outside, just kind of outside the box. I'd like to work for Cristobal, man. I just like, guys like that. I think he's the heir apparent from Saban in Alabama. I think he's next up. I don't think Dabo's leaving Clemson. I mean, the man's got a family. Why would you leave? I mean,
That's
you
right.
Run through the ACC, you have full reign. So I would say Saban and Mario. And, obviously my father being Kurt Crain, if Auburn called, I'd, go down there and see what was going on. But no, I'm loving this here. That's a great question, man. I haven't even thought about that.
No, you never know, man. You talk such good ball. You draw it up on visually and also on the screen.
Like I say, man, if I was a chef for 9 years, I'd probably have a pretty good chef podcast, Jim.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay, before you go, the one thing you're looking forward to this college football season, and I know last year when I would go to games, and I talked to Andy Burcham earlier this week about the same thing. I took the crowds on game day for granted, and I'll be honest, sometimes I used to complain about traffic and things like that, but to walk down the strip in Tuscaloosa and not see anybody last year, to walk the quad and work into the stadium was one of the saddest things I've ever experienced on a game day. Are you looking forward to full stadiums and maybe something else that this 2021 season excites you about?
It's a great question. I'm looking forward to all of it, and really, not even talking about just the games, but I was a kid that grew up when on Saturday morning, I'd get up at 6:30, 7 in the morning, and walk out and go throw the football in the front yard, and because I knew in an hour I was going to hear the band playing.
That's right.
And it's you get me emotional, Jim, thinking about it, man. Being able to walk around in Auburn and Oxford and Starkville and Tuscaloosa. Because look, as divided as we are, as a country right now and society right now, nothing brings us together like sports, especially down here in our neck of the woods.
Yep.
Being able to walk outside and see your friends and see people from other tailgates and, meeting new people. You have, fathers and daughters that relationships, was brought together by going to the games. Families that have, that if there wasn't any sports, wouldn't have ever met each other, that are now lifelong friends, being able to go and have a drink at a tailgate, smelling the barbecue, hearing, the roar of the stadium, even from outside during the game. And, I challenge everybody when you're in the stadium and even just walking around, just take a second, whether it's at Vanderbilt, whether it's at Sanford Stadium, whether it's at Bryant-Denny, whether it's on the Strip, whether it's at Tumors, it doesn't matter. Just take a second and realize, how fortunate we are to be able to live in a place where we can do this and how important this is, to us, not only as people bringing us together. Because I promise you this, when my team scores a touchdown and I'm in the stadium, I'm looking to the left, I don't care if that's a Democrat or Republican. For those 3.5 hours, we're hugging, we're high-fiving. We're not worried about IDs and bills and all this other stuff in Congress. We're excited about what we're excited about. It's a part of us, Jim. It will always be a part of us, and I'm just excited to get it back, man, because to me, it's not just about the final score. It's a fabric of our society, and we need it back, and we deserve it back.
Yeah, that's why my angel wings here are SEC pennants right here.
That's
so that's
exactly
why
right.
That's why I do it that way. Jake, thank you. Jboy Show, go download it, like, subscribe, and all that. And some exciting things coming up this year. Tell me some guests on the horizon or something else you may be doing this year you want all of our listeners to know about.
Yeah, well, Jim, we do pretty much an interview style of show, but we're adding a lot more content, kind of breaking some news, I guess. But we're going to make 2 big announcements on additions to the show that people will know that we're really excited about. We're also going to start going live a couple times during the week as well with fan interaction. The guests that we bring on, being able to interact with the guests that we get on in real time is going to be fantastic. We've got a huge wagering show coming up. We've had a bunch of wagering companies reach out to us. I think you're going to love the style and format of the show. I came up with it myself. So we're going to start doing that every Friday, really starting next Friday. And again, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We got Eric Musselman coming on here soon. Eli Drinkowitz coming on. Obviously going to be at Media Days. Dan Wetzel. We do a recruiting roundup of every SEC school every Wednesday that people love. I had Mike Farrell on this past Wednesday. So, yeah, we got a ton more coming. Be looking for some press releases and some new content because, we're growing like a weed and we're going to try and keep doing it. But, Jim, man, I really appreciate you asking me to come on, man. I love what you guys got going. You, Ryan, and Lance, man, you're knocking it out of the park. And I hope we can do this again soon.
Well, I'm a huge fan, so I'm excited about all of that, including the gambling show. Even though I'm horrible at that, maybe you'll teach me to be better. All right, well, he's Jay Crain, the Jboy Show here on our countdown to SEC Media Days, brought to you by our friends at ATIX. Man, we'll be watching. Thank you.
Jim, thank you, guys. Be safe. I'll see you soon.